F1 track limits fast in Austria, what went wrong and how to fix it. Formula 1 is the pinnacle of global motorsport, the championship that should lead the way for all other series around the globe, and yet once again the outcome of a race was confirmed 5 hours after the checkered flag fell. However, the track limits saga that unfolded at the Red Bull Ring should be analysed carefully. To begin with, it must be understood that since last year, a zero-tolerance policy has been in place that uses white lines to police the track limits, with the transgression taking place when a driver passes all four wheels on the other side of the white line in question. This followed a more flexible approach and took into account each track characteristics with corner-specific instructions, but was widely criticized as inconsistent and confusing for fans. While the policy of track limit control with white lines was implemented last year, and this was not a big issue at the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix, the explosion of deleted laps this weekend is simply because the FIA is policing it better, because it now has more manpower between its personnel present at the circuit and those at its remote operations center in Geneva, Switzerland. So it is not that this year there have been a higher number of track limit infringements than before at Red Bull Ring, but that a more rigorous method of control has been put in place. On the other hand, let's consider what prompted Aston Martin to lodge a protest after the race, and this is the point-to-point fight the squad is in for second place in the Constructors' Championship with Mercedes and a little further back, Ferrari, which in Aston Martin, understand it will continue until the end of the season. Remember that teams get paid more money if they finish higher in the championships, so it is important to fight for every available point, whether it's on the track or, if necessary, on a desk afterwards. With that in mind, Aston Martin set alarm bells, ringing when an hour and a half after the race ended. It lodged a protest over the Austrian Grand Prix results, claiming that several cars were not penalized for breaching Article 33.3 of the sporting regulations, which states that drivers cannot leave the track without a justified reason. The FIA claimed that it had already launched an investigation into the matter prior to Aston's protest after race direction reported more than 1,200 plus possible track limit offences, something the FIA described as an unprecedented situation. The track limit issue had already been a factor in the Red Bull Ring weekend since Friday's qualifying session, when 47 lap times were deleted for this reason, with Sergio Perez being a major casualty as he was condemned to the 15th place starting spot for losing his 3 Q2 laps. On Saturday, the sprint shootout and sprint race day, the drivers seemed to be more in control of the situation, as just 13 times were deleted in qualifying and 7 during the shorter race. On Sunday, the day when the big championship points are handed out and everything is up for grabs, drivers went for the limits, literally, and went over them, especially in turn 9 and 10, to the point where 7 of the 20 drivers were penalized over the course of the Grand Prix, including Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, 2 main front-runners. But while the champagne was drying on the Red Bull team members' clothes and the teams were rushing to dismantle their equipment in order to head to Silverstone, the venue for the next race next weekend, the stewards were given the arduous task of conducting a full review of the lap times deleted from the race that could not be reviewed during the race. As a result, 5 hours after the end of the Grand Prix, 12 post-race penalties were applied, which changed the provisional result. Sainz, who had already received a 5-second penalty when he served on his second pit stop, was penalized a further 10 seconds, dropping him from 4th to 6th, behind Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso. Hamilton similarly dropped from 7th to 8th as he had to add 10 seconds to his final time, failing 1 place behind Mercedes teammate George Russell. The other change in the points awarding zone was for Alpine's Pierre Gasly, who also took a 10-second penalty and moved from 9th to 10th, allowing Lance Stroll to move up 1 position. Yes, Alonso and Stroll, both Aston Martin drivers, gained positions, and the team added 3 more points to its original tally for the day. Remember what we mentioned previously? This was a very successful protest for the Silverstone-based squad. Outside the top 10, the 2 Williams drivers, Alexander Albon and Logan Sargent, and the 2 AlphaTauri drivers, Yuki Tsunoda and Nyck de Vries, were also penalized, with Alpine's remaining man Esteban Ocon being the most penalized with a total of 30 seconds. For the record, the stewards removed a total of 83 lap times from the race, and only 2 drivers did not commit any infringements, being Russell and Zhou Guanyu. Tell the secret, guys! Now, was it possible to avoid the mess of drivers exceeding track limits and the subsequent delay in having the results confirmed? One way of looking at it is that the F1 is the pinnacle of motorsport and has the best drivers in the world. Then they should be able to keep their cars within the set limits as per the rules. Well, it's not that simple. The nature of turns 9 and 10, the last 2 corners of the Austrian track, and where most of the infringements took place, are a temptation to go beyond the limits as they are downhill and at high speed, which make the cars tend to go further wide. Besides, a racing driver will always want to go deeper if he can, and on the other hand, it's not easy to judge the limit of the white line from inside the cockpit. What is understood to be the simplest solution is to place gravel traps in those areas instead of asphalt, something that in fact Niels Wittich, F1's race director, revealed on Sunday that he had already suggested to Red Bull Ring bosses after last year's race. But what would be a solution for Formula 1 would cause a problem for MotoGP, the other major world championship staged each year at the Spielberg track, as it is convenient for the bikes to have asphalt runoffs. Also, unlike asphalt, gravel has a maintenance cost during the year to keep it working as it should, and can also create problems for other car racing championships or those who choose to test at Red Bull. A car that goes on gravel can suffer damage, and it is not easy to remove, which translates into time and money. The track limit saga leaves several questions hanging in the air. Is the rule right? Is an even stronger policy system needed? Or do drivers simply need to stay within track boundaries? Whatever the solution, it's clear that the FIA and Formula 1 will need to have one in hand for the next Austrian Grand Prix to avoid another farce in the world's premier motorsport championship. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the Grid Report, where we bring you the latest F1 updates.